r/ask Reddit. Redditor, what's your best petty revenge story? For a while, I worked as a web designer in a small ad agency serving a very niche industry. Previously, the design team had no creative lead, and were all sort of operating independently across varying clients. We decided to hire a creative director to fill that gap, and I was given the task of sorting through and giving first round interviews to find the person who would later become my supervisor. Two candidates in particular stood out from the rest for very different reasons. One was exceptionally talented, an all-around nice guy, and somebody who generally would have been great for the role. The other, let's call him John, had mediocre talent. Came across as an insufferable, arrogant prick, but had previous experience working within the niche industry that we serviced. He also had contacts within that industry that could lead to new business. Despite my strong recommendation to not hire John, his relationships in the industry were too compelling to our agency's leadership to pass up, and they hired him. It didn't take long before the entire company started to realize John was a huge burden. He had virtually zero experience in anything related to digital design. Design for apps, websites, mobile, etc. were all completely and utterly beyond his grasp. But he used his position of relative power to make decisions on those projects that the entire design team refused to support, most of which came back to bite the company in the ass later. The design team hated him, because fixing and working around his screw-ups became part of our daily routine. The sales team hated him, because he'd claim it took him unbelievably exaggerated amounts of time to complete even the most trivial of tasks, 4 days to design a business card template, so they wouldn't even assign him projects anymore. Work that was clearly his responsibility started to rapidly trickle down to the rest of the design team. We'd be working late nights 4 out of 5 days a week, because all of his projects that were in danger of missing deadlines would be reassigned to us. Meanwhile, he'd be the first to walk out the door every day, right at 5 PM. Without fail. On top of all that, the guy was absolutely, without a doubt, the biggest tool I've ever met. Always right about everything. Completely unbending on his idiotic opinions, and completely clueless that literally every person in the building wished he would get hit by a truck. I genuinely tried to work with him for about a year, until I decided that the job had become intolerable because of him, and wasn't going to change anytime soon. So I turned in my 2-week notice. About a month after I left, I heard that he had been let go from the job. Shortly after that, I noticed that he had changed his LinkedIn status to show that he was working for a new agency I had never heard of, also servicing that same niche industry. I looked them up, and quickly figured out that he had started his own agency, a primarily digital agency, when he had no experience in digital or interactive design, and had literally fucked up every digital interactive project he'd ever been on. I know, because most of them were reassigned to me. I briefly considered contacting him and requesting he remove my work from his portfolio for ethical reasons, but I could already hear his reply in my head. As creative lead, all work done by my team is an extension of my creative direction. He'd used similar lines in the past to insert himself into receiving credit on successful projects he'd had zero involvement on. So instead I sent an email to one of the partners of the agency we both had worked for, saying something along the lines of, "Hey, not sure if you've noticed this, but it looks like John is using your company's intellectual property to directly compete against you. If I had to guess, I'd assume his next step would be to make a move at your client list." The reply was short and sweet. "Thanks for bringing this to my attention. He'll be hearing from our attorney in the morning." John's website was brought down less than 24 hours later. I have to with a previous landlord property management company. I signed a lease on a townhouse while in college that included high-speed internet. The setup was basically one shitty router for 14x townhouses, so like 28 people. Needless to say it was shit, and the location of our unit versus the router made it worse. We made some calls to try and get them to add a router or hardwire us in so we could add our own. No dice. Eventually I paid to get my own service and added 2x routers in our unit. I changed the SSID to match what the free router was, and kept the passwords the same, so to the residents it looked like there was better coverage. After about 2 weeks I changed one router's password and just disconnected the other, so some residents could use the free router, some had a bad password, and some could connect but couldn't reach the outside world. They must have been flooded with calls because within 24 hours they had someone out and added 3x new routers to help with coverage. Back when I was studying engineering, it occurred to me to try and find an app on my iPhone for those Panasonic projectors in lecture rooms. So I get the app and it just let me connect to the one in the class without a password or anything. I have a friend who is one of those perpetual pranksters. You can't leave your PC or bag or food drink unattended when he's around. So I beam a picture of him onto the projector, so the lecturer is just talking away and this goofy picture of my mate is on the screen. Lecturer doesn't realize yet. People in the lecture start waking up and giggling a bit. Now I use the pen function and draw a penis on the picture too. Mate was red in the face and trying to hide. Lecturer finally noticed and says, "Michael, why is there a picture of you on the screen?" Finally, for a fleeting moment, I actually wrecked that fucker. I had a 6-month school internship at a mobile phone store. The boss was a total asshole that treated his school interns like full paid workers, even gave me some concerning money responsibilities. A while after the internship he called to tell me I would have to give a statement at court. He had a problem with some customer and a shipment and he planned to tell the court that he explained me everything concerning shippings precisely. Of course he didn't. And of course I didn't lie in front of the judge. My boss attorney gave me a look I will never forget when he realized his stupid plans didn't work out. Few weeks later my now ex-boss tried to call me again. I didn't pick up. Fuck this guy. As a nurse, we had this god-awful patient who made all our lives hell. Needed pain meds on the dot. Needed to smoke every half hour. Sat on the call light all damn day. This person was possibly the rudest human being I've ever met. Treated us like slaves. And was drug seeking. It finally came time for discharge. And this patient decided to come up with a whole bunch of new medical problems. I have chest pain. I have nausea. One side of my body feels numb, so, being the very skilled and rational nurse I am, I asked the doctor for a whole new set of orders. First, I asked for lab draws every 3 hours, meaning needles every 3 hours, to check cardiac markers. Then I asked that the PT be placed on NPO status, nothing by mouth. For the nausea, this person couldn't go an hour without eating something. For the numbness, I requested the PT be placed on strict bed rest for 24 hours, and then have a physical therapy eval ordered, which meant no more going downstairs to smoke. I explained this all to the patient, and he says, "Shit, I just wanted to stay another night. I ain't doing any of that. I feel fine. Just give me my damn papers." Talked it over with the doctor on call. He gave me the all clear to discharge, and I had him out the door in an hour. A drunk guy harassed me on the tube one night in my way home. About 2 minutes after his last fucking stuck up bitch, he fell asleep. Deeply asleep. So I took out my lipstick, gorgeous coral color, and drew all over his face. Yes, I may also have been drunk. I think I was trying to read my book with one eye closed to help me focus. Yep. So I got off at Acton and watched him snooze away down the Heathrow branch. Asshole. I hope he woke up with lipstick all over his pillowcase and a pissed off missus. Back when I was a senior in high school around Christmas time, my parents allowed me to skip school to go buy Christmas gifts and say fuck it for the day. I had my license, so I was excited to just do my own thing that day. I head out to the mall in the other town and am having one of those really good days, you know, where for no particular reason you are just happy and floating through the day. It was sunny out and not too cold. Just a perfect day. After I finish up at the mall, I figure I would treat myself. I got one of those big gulp Slurpees from 7-Eleven. The almost gallon looking cup that barely fits into any of your cup holders with the red shovel and straw of Mountain Dew Code Red. Hell yes, this was continuing to be an awesome day. I needed to cross a bridge to get over the big river in our area and onto the highway I needed. The bridge had the outside lane closed midway through. I'm in the inside lane and need to get to the right turn lane at the end of the bridge. Before the closure, this lady in a nice BMW tries to speed up and cut in front of me before the lane closed. I was like, WTF. This was dangerous as it is being all tight and everyone following close, so I don't let her in and she slides in behind of me, cutting off the person behind me. Whatever. I can see in my mirror she is waving her arms around and upset. As I pull into the right turn lane, she pulls up next to me and rolls down her window. All I see is animated movements and someone yelling. So I roll down my window. This old bitch isn't going to ruin my day. My initial plan is to just be overly nice to her. Bitchy people in a fit hate when you are super nice to them. But after I roll down my window, I hear her breaking into a tirade against teenage drivers. You kids should learn manners. You kids shouldn't be driving. I'll have you arrested and just being a mean woman because I wouldn't let her break the rules and cut everyone in line. So I had a moment of brilliance. I reach over, grab my fully filled and bright red Slurpee, and with my right arm I sorta chucked it across my body. My initial plan was that it would hit her door or something and spill everywhere on her paint, causing her to have to go to a car wash. What actually happened turned out better than I could have imagined. Now, remember, she was leaning over into the passenger's seat to yell at me. So as I chucked this tank of red sticky slushy out my window, it didn't hit her car door or any part of the outside. Instead, it sailed perfectly into her open window and fucking exploded when it hit the headrest of her passenger's seat. I'm talking bright red slushy exploding all over the nice tan leather interior, windshield, and best of all on the woman's face. The look of utter shock and awe on her face was absolutely incredible. She went from one moment being rude, mean, and authoritative to suddenly shocked and trying to process her situation. I simply said Merry fucking Christmas and drove away. Those were the only words I spoke to her. Afterwards I felt kinda bad. I mean, I didn't mean to throw it in her car, but rather on it. That mess must have been a pain in the dick to get cleaned up. But after thinking about it a little more, I was very happy that it turned out the way it did.